We're going to talk about the LCS playoffs a little bit here. We're going to start with C9 and their tragic collapse.
Let's just start here, Raz. Can you actually believe that Cloud9 isn't even in the LCS playoffs? There's still 2 matches to go. They're not even in the running. They're not even going to be at that fight. I still can't wrap my head around it. I always can't believe that match yesterday happened, man. That was so insane. What a way to go out of the playoffs. Just gone. If people didn't watch the games were all over like 10 minutes in. It was mental. You were like, holy shit, this is supposed to be like a super team. What the fuck?
Like, literally, for me, I predicted 3-1 Cloud9. The send-off for me to the casters was that, like, I don't think, like, they have adapted. Summit has learned, like, they cannot replicate what 100 Thieves did to them because, like, Golden Guardian series, sure, it was a worse team, but, like, the way they changed their strategy was going to be significant. And the way he got destroyed was, like, the most obvious, clear thing. Game 1, instantly, 3 to 5 deaths. Yes.
I was like a motherfucker, yeah.
I see the Jace pick into like Nocturne, Rise, and Born. And I was like, okay, guys, we learned nothing.
Yeah. People don't know he was down like 0-5 in lane as Jace into Ornn. This is the worst thing about this guy. He's even supposed to be the one who boxed the trend of the NA Jace because he's like an elite Korean top laner coming over, smurfing on everyone. But no, the fucking NA Jace gets its fucking sick revenge in the end.
What are you supposed to do? Like, the whole thing about this is like they late pick Jace in the draft intentionally.
Yes.
Like they opted into the Ornn Nocturne experience, and it's like, how the fuck are you going to do anything with Jace? Like, you try and you can't see anybody to poke because Nocturne turns out the lights, and then he's just sitting on your face with Stride Breaker, and then you get hit by an Ornn ult, and then you die.
It's literally the worst combination of ideas because we talked about what he was going up against. It's also he's on weak side because they're playing towards Caitlyn Lux and Lee Sin is pathing towards him. So literally 4 to 5 times, every time the wave is pushing away from him, he's like, I'm fucking dead. Like, clearly. First time he escaped the gank. The second time I'm pretty sure he's like trying to clear out a ward or something. It just keeps happening.
Hold up. Part of this is like you say he escaped the gank.
Okay.
It was a level 3 Nocturne gank.
It was a bit of a reach.
Cleared bottom side jungle, cleared all 3 cans, and then walked all the way at the top side, and then tried to do a level 3 Nocturne gank. So, like, I'm pretty sure I could escape that gank.
Yes. Okay.
Like phoning in. Like people criticize him for not ganking enough. He's like, oh, you want early game ganks? You want bloody? There you go. Then it's
Raz is that guy. Like,
you know that meme where the guy comes in and he goes like, I can leave here, my job is done. He's like, but you didn't do anything at all. That was fucking inspired. What was that? What was the point of that coming from that?
Raz is like that guy. Like, I could tie somebody's hands up with like string and then they'd break out and he'd be like, is this guy Houdini? What the fuck?
Exactly, yes. What mastery does he have over the ropes and the string?
Hey, look, it worked the last time when 100 Thieves did it. He thought he could make it happen again.
Yes, indeed.
And so, like, yes, it just happened. And it's wild because it wasn't even, like, just the Jace being a bad pick. I thought even the Akali flex was rough, too, because it ties you to having, like, no damage in your composition. So, like, even though I think, Ornn pick, I legitimately think either Sion or even GP can work there, right? But Sion's probably going to is going to handle this.
It was a mysterious lack of GP in general being picked in the series, and then it looked like I was surprised he didn't go more on the draft here,
I'm surprised. Like, he literally played it in the Golden Guardian set. I was like, okay, he's expanding his champion pool, willing to play Ornn. Great, most broken champion right now. Like, he went right back. And so it's just not what he wants to play. It's very clear. And that's the bigger telling story for me with Cloud9. And I know we'll talk about it later, so I'll hold on to it, is the fact that, like, when the chips are down and someone has to play against a top laner he truly respects, he goes back to his core champions and he will not move. He will not budge. Right. And that's the reality.
I'm surprised he didn't play GP because like that would have been a significantly better pick in this situation. And what surprised me is that he was playing GP in their last series.
Yeah.
So like I didn't understand what the emphasis on the Jace here was. And also, I mean, credit to Evil Geniuses too, because they had a good read. Like when C9 beat Golden Guardians, I think they got false confidence from playing very aggressive like MF or Caitlyn bot lanes and having significant pressure and kind of playing weak side, at least in style, weak side top lanes. Yeah. And EG read this very well. They said, okay, we're going to give you the Caitlyn. We know that's your priority. And here's the thing. We're going to have Ornn and Rise, you will not be able to poke us out late game. We're taking Yuumi. We'll just heal up all that poke damage if you even get there. We have extreme hard engage onto your poke line with Ornn, Nocturne, and Realm Warp, and Yuumi speed, everything like that. So effectively, Cloud9's only win condition was, hey, let's stack dragons. And then we were talking about this because we did a watch party for it this last weekend. And then they get Ocean Soul, and I was like, oh my God, this
That's
is
where the universe did want them to win Monte. Exactly. That's the kick in the dick from Fate.
Because
right
we were sitting there and I was like, I really don't even think EG cares if they get Ocean Soul because like, how are they going to regen? They're all squishy. They're going to engage on the back line and then they're going to instantly die. And that's going to be it. Like Ocean Soul literally does fucking nothing for you. So it was also unfortunate for Cloud9 that they got like the 1-in-5 roll that was going to be absolutely shit for them.
It was hilarious. Like
it was really
the analyst
funny.
desk, we were like talking about it in the analyst desk. It was like Ocean Soul. I was like, wow, this is actually the most useless soul there. And then they get Elder, and it's like it still doesn't matter. They get Giga outscaled.
You have to be able to get people down low enough for Elder to work, which they could never do. Yeah. So it also didn't matter. It was bad. It was. It did feel like kind of, like a Greek tragedy where the gods are just against you and playing games with mortals due to their hubris. That first game where I was like, holy shit, this game is actually just cursed for C9. Like there's nothing is going their way.
Every fan, and I'm sure the players themselves are going through flashbacks. Like that dog looking at the cupcake kind of flashback to the Hunger Thief series. And it's like, oh, it's happening again. Okay.
Also, I have to say, if you are a fan, I was talking about this on the watch party, but like two of the teams in the playoffs, this is super relevant for. So think of the top players we've got left in the playoffs, Raz. We've got Impact on EG, we've got Bwipo on Team Liquid, and we've got fucking Someday on 100 Thieves. One of those is not like the others. Dude, we're in a meta now where you can play fucking Ornn and Gangplank. Like, this is the fucking Korean top laner's dream. This is the weak side Korean top laner. Like, this is just how you win a championship. Like, Impact and Someday, this is going to be right in their wheelhouse for the teams that they're on. Like, I actually think it gives those teams a little buff. Meanwhile, Bwipo actually, listen, he was supposed to be one of the big imports that's dominated all the people at his position. He's looked a bit ropey in the playoffs, mate. He's looked a little bit like I'd rather be on the Impact side of that one or like the Someday side. Just give me the Ornn. My guy can play safe. They'll let the rest of the map win. Bwipo ints like fucking Summit did here. This could be a dodgy next match.
Yeah, and I think a little bit of, what is it called again? When a team is just constantly winning and they just have forgotten like what is an unsuccessful draft or an idea. Confirmation bias.
There you go.
Yeah, confirmation bias. Because like they have been a team that's like, oh, maybe we can play Lucian, and I know we'll talk about it later on, but like they'll try and go for pretty heavy early game drafts because it probably works for them consistently in scrims. But like that is just not the meta. Like Ornn right now is just busted. He's a broken type of champion.
Region.
Yeah. He has I think a 62% win rate, and he's like the highest pick champion right now in playoffs.
I'll just check that.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it, totally.
And so he's the highest pick champ for my mind. He has an absurd win rate, and a lot of the times those drafts are coupled with, naturally, control mage mid, probably an Aphelios or Zeri bot lane. And a lot of the times, if you are making a mistake, which will happen, like it's North America, teams will make mistakes. Like I say this, LPL has made a mistake, and I've watched you guys talk about it too. I'll watch those games entirely later on. But if you make a mistake, there's no forgiveness. You literally get stomped in larger team fights. So it's pretty absurd. And it kind of goes back to Cloud9 where it feels like they're aggressively playing against it. Another pick too that they later on started playing was Twisted Fate, where it didn't work for Fnatic for a good reason. For a long time, early pick Twisted Fate, while it was successful, theoretically was not good because enemy team could just either go Ornn top, Tom Kench support, and if it's banned, you can go, it has been going Alistar bot and Xayah, who's been really popular. So it's okay, what angles do I have? If the enemy team is playing respectfully and not trolling out of their minds, I'm very useless. So I think the drafts overall for Cloud9, especially in game 1, was just really bad. Game 2 is good. I thought game 2's draft was nice. I like that one.
Because here's the thing, Monte. As much as look, obviously this is the nature of the show. You talk about the matches that just happened. The crazy thing is this. You know, when I was talking about how if you're Fnatic, they still finished third, but obviously there's a world where if you're looking at that roster, you're do we make a gamble panic move? Basically, do we try and upgrade and hope it makes the team better and win the split and go to worlds? Blah blah blah. Cloud9's in a scenario now, dude, where no one thought they would have to change players after the split. Like, if I were them, first of all, they have not addressed at all, you'll notice, what happened with that Winsome situation. This guy just played the whole split, and then he's just out after one split, one series, and he's just gone. He
must have had stage nerves. That's the only explanation.
Gone from reality, just doesn't exist anymore. Then you look at the rest of the team. Their team is in the worst possible condition you could end a split in. Summit is inting the shit out of all the games. Fudge just did nothing. He wasn't bad, but he just did nothing. Blabber looked like he was pretty fucking shit in that series. Wasn't this fucking pop-off jungler. What more do you want? What can Berserker do? Berserker, by the way, never even in a position to win a game. He's the bloody ADC. Like, you can't just 1v9 in 2022 points. Like, when you're behind all the games and the scaling draft on the enemy. Like, it's not going to happen. So, like, if I were Cloud9, I don't know what you do, Monty. Like, the whole project looks failed to me.
I think, look, you can't, they don't have a way to actually play the game and win, because the way that Summit wants to play the game is not the way that's going to win them the game. Like, Summit can't play the Camille and do a 4-1 split comp when he's inting on Camille. Like, that's not an option. I liked what they did in the Golden Guardians series, because at least if you have the GP, you can start grouping and trying to, stack towards Soul or play around these objectives. But the Camille was really kind of not very useful in that game, and yet they still tried grouping because she was behind and couldn't win these 1v1s. But it's also what they're giving up. I mean, they're giving up Zeri to EG on blue side every single game. No other region is. Show me another best of 5 where Zeri's been available in 3 of the games. Like, that doesn't happen. It's so like fundamentally disrespectful. And okay, like, I get you give up Zeri in game 1 because you want to play Caitlyn Lux. Fine, like, roll the dice on that one. That's okay. Why do you give up Zeri in game 2 when you're playing Jinx and Tahm Kench? Like, that just defeats the entire purpose. You gave up a power pick with no ostensible advantage in order to. You're not achieving anything. Yeah. And then on top of that, I really like the Karma pick from EG. Like, the Karma has been kind of a fringe meta pick. It's very good in certain situations. I think EG's drafts were great this series. I think they did a really good job. And I love the Karma pick because it allows you to have extreme priority in the bot lane, which then accelerates your Zeri even faster. The problem with Cloud9's composition is that they don't have any way to ever kill Zeri. There is no way to kill Zeri with this composition. Like, you're not going to hit Zeri with poke, not with an Ornn in the front line. You're not going to be able to catch Zeri in any conceivable fashion. So Zeri combined with a Karma, like, that speed is just going to clean up team fights because you literally can't kill her. So I don't know what Cloud9 was thinking. Like, I think that this was very doomed from the start of this game. And then you get into the third game of the series, and Summit's playing Gwen. Okay, again, how do you kill Zeri? I only like Gwen compositions like we were talking about earlier when you have a low mobility backline so that the Gwen can get into the backline and start killing the carries. The only way you kill Zeri with this composition, if you're Cloud9, with a Twisted Fate, Lucian, Nami, Jarvan. So first off, Jarvan ult doesn't do anything to Zeri. Second of all, okay, so let's say Twisted Fate ports into the back line and manages to gold card Danny. Well, they have a million peel options with Gragas, Alistair, Ryze even can root them. So basically, you have to hope that you get multiple gold cards onto Zeri to lock her down long enough. You'd have to, like, gold card Everfrost, Zhonya's gold card again, and that's maybe how Zeri dies. Like, how reliable is that? It's not fucking reliable. Yeah. And so C9's only gambit this entire series was, let's do well enough, or in games 1 and 3, let's do super well in the early game. We want to draft towards that priority, and then maybe we just snowball a massive advantage. But the top lane is never in sync with that plan. And the top lane picks don't fucking make sense. Like, they don't do anything in these compositions.
I liked game 2 a little bit more from their draft. At least they have split push options. And
that was fine. Options. It was just he inted.
Yes, exactly. He played poorly. He played really poorly. So that one sucked. And what also sucked is that their 2v2 mid played really poorly too. I think I'm trying to remember who died early. I think it was Trundle. I would have to actually look back. I made a note on that one just to make sure. I know he gets killed. Yeah, it was actually Trundle on that first one. And then they tried to contest Rift Herald in the 8-minute mark. And then, like, Trundle just face checks into Victor and then dies again. So at this point, Victor just has 2 kills. So your early game from the 2v2 aspect is just done. And then Camille is just inting there too. So your overall late game plans of having Poke, Kiteback, and generally speaking, you're just going to be playing for split and avoiding all fights. It's a fringe draft in this meta, and they were bad. Like, they played it poorly.
Yeah, I think if you have the Corki, the Tom Kench, the Trundle, and the Jinx, you can play long-range Siege on and play a 4-1. You can do that. And you will be strong. You try and poke them off the objectives, but you don't fight with this composition unless you're fighting with the Camille. Like, that's it. So it is, you're peeling with Trundle Pillar, you're peeling with Tom Kench, you're trying to use, range advantages. But the other problem with this is, like, Berserker doesn't even buy rapid fire cannon. So, like, do you have, like, that much? You're not even accentuating, you're not even itemizing in a way that accentuates the advantages that you have.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it just feels like a mismatch between the way that Summit wants to play these games out, and indeed the way Summit is capable of playing these games out, because he does seem deluded at this point in time, and the way the rest of the team actually thinks that they can win games.
Yeah. I mean, imagine playing the whole split as well, and you always have a massive top advantage. In fact, he's even just solo killing people. Like, now you're playing a totally different game. You've never had that once in this series, like, say, an alien game. What was the point you were making earlier, Raz? Now would be the appropriate time. Like, what you noticed about, like, essentially, you set it up well. When they had the series they played against Golden Guardians, because he did actually play different champions in the champion pool, it seemed to address that criticism, like, maybe he has a limited champion pool, blah, blah, blah. But actually, it sounds, I thought the same thing, mate. I thought, to me, it was more like, yeah, but look who he's playing. I don't think he respects those players.
Yeah.
I think he's just doing it to sort of, like, make a point. And as you said, he just went back to his old reliable, right? He went back to what you always go back. What do you think about this point? Because it seems like it's a limiting factor, right?
I think so. And I think the toughest thing for any team is when your strongest player, the strongest performing player, who at this point seems, and I think everybody's on the same page that he's going to get MVP. Like,
he was the MVP. It should be.
Exactly. He's going to be. Like, it feels like that's going to be the case. Like, and he is what's limiting your team. Like, that's a lose-lose situation in every respect. I don't expect them, I know we'll talk about it later on, to, like, be back on this team, because it feels like it's just stubbornness. And it's the confirmation of bias of, like, oh, I am destroying the domestic top laners and for, like, the majority of the LCS. And of course, like, he had that one game versus Team Liquid where it was his Tryndamere versus Whipple's Jax, where, yes, Whipple also had a bad game there, where he's like, okay, I'm once again shit stomping on people. So then why do I have to learn these other champions? Like, even if I already know them, his Camille, I thought he executed his Camille well. He could play a good Camille. He could play a good GP. Like, we saw that even when Golden Guardians rolled over, like, he had good mechanics on the champion. But it doesn't feel like he wants to play those champions. So those are the worst conversations, because it makes offseason really tough. And I think he's an incredible player, and that as long as he is able to grow off this, and hopefully the competition in the LCS is better enough so the enemy top laners are not just letting you get away with it. So now you are just not growing and coming to the wrong conclusions, where I feel he is. And then, like, hopefully next split he comes back, because it's like a missed opportunity. So that was the case. I also agree with the Game 3 point. Game 3, it just felt like this team was out of it. They had a completely early game focus, like Twisted Fate, into what we were just talking about. Like, you can't make a play on side lanes. You're not going to be able to dive bot. And you're right, Evil Geniuses, Monte, like, just had great drafts throughout. They were always counter-picking support. So the strategies that C9 had of diving bot lane was never going to happen. On the Karma, they were either thinning waves, so it just wasn't like they made the attempt and it was just pushed away. Where the Caitlyn Lux game, it was not a significant enough of advantage for Caitlyn to be justified in the pick. So I think everything from EG's side, from the draft, was great, and also just showcased how valuable Vulcan is as a player. And so everybody kind of said it in the offseason. I said it, like, multiple times. I don't understand how Cloud9 let Vulcan get away. Like, I'm sure he wanted to stay on that team, but they thought they had better options that they can grow with, which is Winsome and Isles, and it was just not worth it. He was an all-pro player multiple times in a year, like, in a row. He is your best domestic support, and it just didn't, like, that one for me was, like, the biggest lesson for the offseason.
No, I'm with you on that one. Like, it goes without saying, if people don't know, there's a reason Vulcan himself has like single-handedly held up all the fucking roster boards of teams for a couple of off seasons, because he essentially, bear in mind, he's an NA player, but who's always one of the better players at a position. You also typically, like, people want to waste the import on mid lane. You don't want to always make it support player. So actually, he's mega valuable, of course. Yeah, it was a big gamble to go on this other direction they went. That's why I bring up that topic I did before. Bring it back again. This is not like, bearing in mind, the first things first, they don't have a coach. They have no real head coach in this team. The guy they even have as their head coach now wasn't supposed to be the head coach. He just had to do the job because the other guy got fired and he moved into his spot. So for me, one, you've got to fix this coaching problem. Because, you know, everyone had that angle of like, well, all the guys they still have though are like LS proteges though, so maybe they'll do like a sort of LS light. Dude, if you ever watched LS stream, he hates the way they fucking play the game. Like, they don't have any holdover from LS as far as I can tell. They're doing their own shit, their own style of coaching. I wasn't impressed with that. I didn't see development during the split. If anything, they looked at, they regressed. And some of these players, I don't know how you could run. In good conscience, I couldn't run back the same roster again, mate. Something has to change. But I don't know what, Raz, because as you're saying, technically, like, the MVP's maybe the guy on the chopping block. Like the problem I have with that player as well is he is the best player, but it seems like you are going to be so one-dimensional if you have him in your team. Like, I don't feel like, to me, it's not worth having him if you're going to say you're not the best player in the team. I'm going to play through someone. Like, he can't be a weak side top laner. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you either commit to him and you say we're all in on the fucking summit angle, or you've got to do some really bold move. Like, I don't know what the move is, but I don't see how Cloud9 can run this same roster back, mate. I think it'll be terrible.
Yeah, I think it's not possible. And from the few interviews that I've seen, Fudge had his interview with Degon saying that he likes mid and he wants to stay mid. So it seems like his initial intention. And I think anybody naturally, when they make a move, they don't want to make it half-assed. Like, they want to stay in a position and like follow through their goal and being the best in that role. But I think the best C9 roster has to be Fudge top lane.
Seems obvious, right? That's actually the ace you have up your sleeve as well. The whole time you can think, dude, no other team can do this. I can't just take out my other best player and then put like a role swap. And by the way, if it works, Fudge might be the best top laner again. If Summit isn't in the league and he's just top, he might even be the best of the role. Like, to me, it's an obvious. You got to gamble on that, I think.
And there are so many free agent mid laners that are available.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, Niski or Jensen both of them could come back.
Just okay. There's a million of them. There's loads of them. Yeah.
There are so many that can literally take that spot. And and there are a few in academy, but I don't think they would make that decision. It just feels like to me the best situation is to just put Fudge top lane. And maybe that's going to be the case after the offseason when they go through their options here. And another thing too, I think just from the fans, perspective, because a lot of people will say, well, if LS was on this team, they would do better, they would draft better. Like Veigar, Waldo, even their mid laner in Fudge, like they all believe the same things that LS does.
That's what's so insane about this situation.
Yes. Like it is not a coaching thing, and is not like
thing for sure.
It's a player thing, and it's like anybody in a coaching position, Monte, too. It's like you're not going to force your player to play the specific champs that he doesn't want. And you only have one option a lot of the times when they are saying no or unwilling to, or just and that is a roster change, like challenging their position. But
when Matthew was the coach, this is real, he's even told the story. They even drafted comps they hadn't even practiced Raz in the playoffs. Like, he just had to stand there as they drafted in the actual fucking like OGN final comps. And he was like, well, we didn't practice these. Like, great. I guess I'm just sign up on this with my.
That was part of
exactly.
That was part of like the memes of like the CLG Korean boot camp was like we practiced entirely different compositions, and they came back to the States, and then I started watching the draft. They were playing like Lucian, Zillion bot lane. I was like,
exactly.
It's like I know they haven't practiced this. Like I know. And then people are like, Monte sucks. I'm like,
exactly. Monte's fucking garbage. Doesn't even get the meta. He's totally misexecuted this comp. What's he doing, this bloody idiot coach? Exactly.
Yeah.
No, of course. I don't care if LS was stood there. If Summit goes, I'm taking Renekton. He has no choice. He has to just let him do it at that point. That's just the reality in it.
Because at the end of the day, like you can practice certain things throughout the scrims and everything in practice time, but when it comes to stage games, like, of course you are coordinating a proper draft. But like at the end of the day, if he's saying these are the list of champions I want to play in this draft, you're gonna have to play it and have the conversation during scrims, of what you could do better and why you didn't like the pick. You don't want to be like, I want you to play Malphite. And when he's like, no, I'm not going to do it, because if he ints on that pick, then it comes back to you.
It's already a precarious situation too, because if you think about the entire scenario, I mean, we've touched on this before, but it really doesn't help that Max Waldo is younger than Summit in terms of Korean age hierarchies. Like it's unlikely, I will say, given my experience, that Summit's going to like bend to Max Waldo's authority under those circumstances.
Looks like a fucking extra from Scott Pilgrim versus the World movie. Like, it doesn't look like head coach material. What are you talking about? Just saying.
I think also the rest of the coaching staff, like, they let Mithy leave during the offseason, and the entire team is built around, so their other assistant coaches are also serving as translators. Like, they are intended to be the bridge between the Korean players and the English-speaking players. And so this entire structure was built around LS and the disciples of LS, and then the Korean coaches that were supposed to like help bridge the gap. And so when the keystone of the arch is plucked out, I hate to tell you guys, the arch doesn't stay intact. It just fucking collapses on itself.
By the way, there's another thing as well, which is, this is where, because I consider myself the custodian of the narratives. I hate when people have like a whack one that gets rolling and then just gets out of control, right? Everyone's take was so whack after this series, because everyone's take went like this. They were all like, wow, ha, bet Cloud9 wishes they had LS now. Right, based on the things I know about that situation, that thought never went through their brain once. Here was what they actually thought, and it's going to hurt a lot of your feelings. What they actually thought was this: shit, imagine how much worse it would have gone if we'd kept LS. That's what they were thinking, Monty. I'll tell you right now. And I don't care if anyone goes, oh my God, what does that mean? You figure out what that fucking means. I don't have to. But I don't think there was a fucking tear shed for LS in that house in this playoff series. Like, there are plenty of problems that had fuck all. He was gone ages ago. There's the other thing. Because we're fans, it feels like he left yesterday. He left after like bloody week 2. We're in the playoffs now, boys. That's the ancient history to Cloud9.
In fact, I think people will be mad about the reality of this. And I haven't talked to anybody at C9, but if I had to guess what the C9's takeaways are from this, it's that we never should have gone this hard into one person because it fucked our entire split when that one person didn't work out. So if anything, and I know a lot of people are going to hate to hear this, Cloud9 is only going to lean harder into the systems that they want to use because those systems have produced, and people, you can meme on Cloud9 as much as you want, but they have been the most successful NA team internationally in League of Legends history. That's just a fucking fact.
When they say that, think about that. You know, everyone memed on the systems, right, as though it's just a term and it means nothing, right, Monty? Dude, look at what they've done. How many fucking rookies have they produced that became players that could be sold to top players? How many people have they had who came through who were like broken players from TSM or other squads that they rehabilitated to be good? Mate, like, of all the teams, they're the only one in NA that could make that brag and actually have some like validity to it. I thought that was so silly when fans were memeing on that. Like, I get that they haven't done it now, obviously. By the way, spoiler, because LS came fucking in and probably disrupted all the shit, they had to redo it all.
Well, it's also the fact that I'm sure a bunch of salty TSM fans that are mad about their team being so shit are trying to pile on C9, even though they objectively, C9, here's the other thing. In spite of all of the mega problems, C9 still got top 4. What do you want from this roster? Is it disappointing? Sure. You know, given what we knew coming into the season. But the fact that they still managed to get top 4 in spite of all of the fucking problems that were happening.
That's true.
Is
didn't make the playoffs.
Impressive.
Exactly.
Maybe you guys, and you can objectively say, well, C9 systems are never going to win a world championship. No NA team's ever going to win a world championship, guys. It's a systemic problem.
It's
not realistic.
What's fucked is you've nailed the psychology of TSM fans. It's like there's a famous thing I was once told, right, about Russian culture that supposedly when they were in like the Soviet period and everything sucked because you were in like the totalitarian system, people didn't really think like, oh, I hope things get better. What you would think was this. Well, essentially you would just think, well, I hope the neighbor's fucking sheep dies as well. The premise was like, if it's going to suck, it may as well suck for everyone. That is how TSM fans work. They don't think, I hope TSM turns around and it's really good. They're like, well, at least fucking Cloud9 sucks as well. Yeah, but Jack also, he also does some things I don't like. Like, is that your only cope? Is to just go, well, yeah, but what about Jack? It's like, we're talking about Reginald and the fact your team's in last place. Yeah, but Jack, his team hasn't fully worked out, has it? It's got systems and that. Like, you little rats. Just get the fuck out. TSM fans, the one thing you were supposed to be good at was talking shit. You're not even good at that anymore.
I mean, obviously, TSM's international performance is pathetic given the history. So as much as you can bag on C9, and maybe you could argue maybe their systems don't allow them to achieve potentially the same ceiling as opposed to they change them. They do provide a very stable floor, guys. They provide a very stable fucking floor. And the other thing I think C9 will probably regret is that historically they don't like diva players, and they actually eject diva players from the team very actively. Like I know from talking to Jack really values grinders. He likes low ego grinders within his team. And so I think that he's probably reconsidering having a player like Summit on this roster that seems that where Summit's ego, at least from all the available evidence that we have, it appears that Summit's ego is like trumping everything on this roster because like you guys are saying.
I've just realized now I know what went wrong in the off season. So they got together, Raz, and they were like, we're going to get on the same page. We're going to philosophically see eye to eye, me and you, LS, Jack and LS, right? And then Jack goes, I love grinders. And then LS goes, yeah, me too. And they were like, fuck. But the problem is, though, Jack's a boomer. He doesn't know Raz. There's another meaning to the word grinder, and it isn't. It isn't someone who loves League of Legends. It isn't. It isn't. Jesus. Anyway, don't respond to that. Don't respond to that. Okay.
But I think like if you look at the C9 success, it has been built off of this very stable foundation. And
what would you get?
There's no way.
Listen, you know Cloud9 a bit as an org, right? But obviously you weren't a coach, right? Well, how would you characterize what the systems they're talking about? Like, what's the sex? Obviously, it's been made into this big meme topic. Just give us a basic context. Like, what do you think they mean when they say that? Like, how they do things, or what is the logic of what they're talking about? Do you think? Because no one's ever actually done that. No one's ever discussed what these bloody things are, which is just a vague concept. It sounds like, essentially, I think the reason people think it's silly is it sounds like middle management speaking of, like, we have a system and, there's a hierarchy and, like, no one really knows what it means, so it sounds a bit vague. So what is your sense for what they mean by that?
Well, they have a personal trainer that comes to the house every day during the week. They do have mandatory workout sessions that they go to, like, basically 5 days a week. And so they value the kind of physical fitness end of things. They do have a sports psychologist who is very active in terms of holding one-on-one sessions with the players and keeping a certain mentality within the team. They have very distinct kind of dietary guides. Like they have in-house chefs that prepare food. They kind of switched back over to Korean food, I know, this year to accommodate many of the Korean players that were within the team. So they like to have team meetings. They have a certain way that they conduct the team meetings in order to give feedback to other players. The players tend to be pretty direct with each other, and they try and remove the emotional element from people reacting to potential criticism by making it kind of a more open environment and kind of stressing the way that feedback isn't personal.
Well, sounds good so far.
Yeah, I think the environment is quite good. What they have and what they've emphasized within the team in order to fix problems. Again, they are very focused on continual improvement and grinding overall. I think that's why players like Licorice, who don't like to practice as much, they kind of get rid of those players over time. Because I think Jack is very canny about kind of seeing the limits of a player's performance. And if there's one thing you can say about Jack, he does tend to remove players from the roster, even though they look good at the time, in the hope that eventually, like knowing that they've kind of hit the ceiling. Like if there's something that, and it's not every time, guys, like people will point to Vulcan in this case, but also if you look at Vulcan, it was very clear that they were changing directions to have like a Korean speaking bot lane. And it wasn't necessarily about Vulcan's performance. I also think there was some friction between Vulcan and Sven in the bot lane in terms of kind of the philosophy of how they wanted to play the game, which resulted in kind of some of the swapping out of Sven that we saw last year. But I do think
exceptions, though. You are right. If you look generally, they haven't made many wrong picks where the guy was better after Cloud9, have they? Like the rare exceptions is what, Vulcan and maybe Jensen. That's about it. Like other than that, you look like Licorice, Zezo, fucking contracts. Like, dude, they haven't put a foot wrong usually. Usually when they kick the people, it is like the Belichick move. You kick them slightly earlier than the fan thinks, but you know more than them, and you kick them at the right time. Yeah, Sven Skaren, obviously a great one. Yeah,
I think that Jack has a really excellent sense of when like players are burning out or when they're kind of on the upswing or the downswing. That's why you see him investing so hard in a young player like Fudge, who really has done well. I mean, I think Jack evaluates certain things. It's like, okay, Fudge came in. Fudge was very confident. He performed very well in Academy. I watched a bunch of those games last year. Yep. Then he goes into LCS. He's actually in high pressure situations at like, MSI, he's their best performing player, which is really shocking. So you see that confidence. He's a player who is very thoughtful in my conversations with him. He exudes a level of confidence. He's willing to play for the team to make this swap. He's willing to play all of these different picks. So he's willing to grind the time. He's willing to play around his teammates. Like Jack loves these kind of players. This is why Fudge is the face of the team right now.
Yeah, and he made the role swap to mid. And in my mind, I know he went third all pro. He was the second best, mid laner in the LCS. Like he had grown to a pretty quick degree, and I think he can get there in next split depending on what the mid lane pool looks like. I know this was a pretty weak split for mid lane pool, but like he just is able to, whenever he's put in a position, just grow and develop to a really quick degree, which is his best thing. And I agree on the sense of like I think they'll probably just make the move away from from Summit, even if he is the best top laner, because they know that they're limiting themselves. And even if we don't think that North America can win a Worlds or all these things, like Jack himself will always put himself in a position where he will think about the ceiling and try and get as far as possible. Like a semifinals is like for him the step he wants to get back to. So that's what's impressive about Cloud9. And the thing about LS, like if LS was on that team from point A to point C, I think they would still face the same problems, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Maybe you can make the case for authority, but at the end of the day, like if a person is stubborn and is confident, has a large ego, like the only other move is to, of course, make a roster move. Like you actually are extremely limited in what you're able to do. So I think it was just a really bad situation, this split. That being said, this split was always going to be, it felt like, experimental for a lot of teams, TSM, Cloud9. Like, they can always just kind of pivot for Worlds. So I do expect a large change. And I hope Fudge stays. Berserker is a weird one. I hope he stays too, but I know they have Sven, and probably Berserker would be the most sought person in offseason, just because being Korean, he has many options in China, in LCK, and if the offer is large enough, they can always have Sven in their back pocket, and they can just run a Sven Isles bot lane or Berserker Isles bot lane. I think Cloud9 right now is pretty set on 3 of their core players, so I think they're going to be fine. I think the only thing they need to think about is coaching, but I think I would like for them to keep Max and just have him have some semblance of control over the roster that he can build, because I think in general that will make the direction of the team much easier from the outset if the players aligned with their coaching staff. That's what made the Reaper rosters really good.
Yeah, of course. It's
what made kind of a little bit like the Mythy roster really good. They got out of group stage in a really tough ass group. It's because Mythy had a good rapport with the European players that they had on their roster. And so you need to have a coach that is there when the team is built up. So it's gonna be interesting. I think Cloud9 will be fine going into the next split.
And they've got a lot of flexibility, as you said earlier, Raz, because when you look at, Fudge may not want to move back into top lane, but if you do move Fudge back into top lane and you get Jensen or Jensen's a resident mid laner, then all of a sudden you can import a European support to pair with Sven, right? Yeah. So there's many different ways that you could move this roster around that I think, could potentially be interesting. There's also do you want to potentially get Tenacity from 100 Thieves into the top lane? Like that could be another play that you could make if you want to keep Fudge mid, and then you can also keep a support player or get a support player as an import.
Yeah.
So I think there's many ways that Cloud9 could go about this, but I mean, I don't think Summit's coming back because it's not like Jack has been afraid to swap out MVP players. He's literally did it with Svenskeren for Blabber. That's just who Jack makes very quick decisions. It's the same reason, after 2 weeks of competition, he got rid of LS. If it's not working, Jack will change it. He's not ride or die on things that he thinks are going south. And so I don't anticipate this roster is going to be coming back in this iteration. I think they sell Berserker. I think they just don't have Korean players anymore on this roster. That's what I think. And as for Max, I I hope he gets to do what he wants, because it just feels like he is not in a position where he and Vhagar can exert their strategic authority on this team. So having them be the ones who are selecting the players and everyone coming in with the understanding that they're in control does a lot. It does a lot.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.